Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. Wow, what a weekend that was. I don't know if you all felt the intensity of that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, but I certainly did. And, a lot of people were messaging me saying it felt different than what they expected it to feel. They felt like it was way more emotional and intense than expansive, and that makes a lot of sense to me. These planetary alignments create cracking opens or expansions through pressure. And so with them meeting each other, they're creating a very specific type of energy. And this energy, if you think about it, in my last episode, I kind of talked about how it's here to help us transform. It's here to help us expand past the barriers and the walls that we've created to see what else is possible, to look at the ways things have been done before and to perhaps create new ways or to step into a new path to do things differently, specifically around relationships, money, any sort of limiting beliefs or programs. Think of Taurus, anchored, rooted, sometimes stubborn. So when you think about that, where are you stuck in your life? This energy is pushing you out of that. And what it also does, because it's, the energy's been building for quite some time, is that it also reveals the areas that are changing. It can bring up the emotions attached to the change, attached to what's leaving, attached to the fears you have around making the change you need to make. And so it can just be a really informative time, but it can also feel like a lot. So if you're feeling a lot, that makes sense to me. We also are still in Mercury Retrograde, which is a bit murky. It can feel, just a little muddy, maybe confusing, lacking clarity around even perhaps the changes you want to make or what the changes actually look like on the other side. And so luckily this week, Mercury goes direct on the 25th. We'll still be in the shadow for 2 weeks following that, but it should start to get the ball rolling again. We can kind of see more clearly, what does this actually look like? The changes we need to make, how, and what does the other side look like perhaps? I do feel like we're often asked to make leaps into the unknown, jumping off the cliff before we see the bottom, before we see what's next, before the next chapter is revealed. Those are really magnetic places to be in this journey. So if you find yourself in a place where a change needs to be made, but you're not sure what the other side holds for you, you're not sure where you're landing, that's actually a super magnetic place to be. It means that there's a quantum leap, a leap of faith being asked of you. And once you complete that, there's a lot of power on the other side of that. There's a lot of confidence and faith that's built within you, faith in the universe, faith in yourself, faith that you're competent and capable of taking care of your inner parts. It's such an important part of this process. And that doesn't mean, of course, that you just, quit your job because you hate it and you don't have a backup plan and you're not sure how you're going to make money. If that's the case for you and you really feel strongly about it, I'm not discouraging it, but I do think it's important to take care of your root as well as we navigate this change. So if change is coming to you a bit slower than you had anticipated, that's okay. It's like uprooting an oak tree. A lot of what we're doing right now, it's really getting into the core layers, some of our most stuck spaces within us, and those take a little bit of time. We've been working with this conjunction for a while. The exact point happened, of course, on the 20th, on Saturday here in the States, but it can take time, so if you're not ready to take the leap, it's okay. You're going to continue to feel that pressure to make a decision or to make the change or to look at the areas of your life where you're feeling stuck or stagnant and shake it up. And another important note is that sometimes when we are afraid to make a change, or we're indecisive, or we are lacking clarity, so we're kind of holding off, that can actually be a sign that your body's in a little bit of a freeze or a place of stagnation, or it's feeling stuck and unable to mobilize. And so some practices I love for that, whether or not you're feeling really contracted, or maybe you're feeling more frozen, or maybe you're just feeling like tired, is to utilize some somatic practices, shaking, having your arms out to the side and just slowly twisting, letting your arms kind of come with you. There's a practice that I displayed on an Instagram reel that you can go onto my Instagram and look at. That's a really great Qigong practice that opens up a lot of space within you. It kind of mobilizes your core. But sometimes we need to encourage our bodies to mobilize. If you're feeling really stuck or stagnant, or maybe you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling like even anger, those practices like shaking, moving, really trying to open up the spaces within you that feel stuck can be helpful. Now, I always preface with these types of suggestions because it's not one size fits all, especially when it comes to trauma work and nervous system somatic work. It's important to notice where you're at and what you're experiencing and feeling, and attuning to your own center. Sometimes you need this really soft, loving self-attunement before you go into a shaking practice. So just really check in with yourself first. Ask what your inner child needs, what your center point needs before you step into a practice of any kind, really. As we come out of this conjunction, they're slowly starting to separate. They're 1 degree apart now, Jupiter and Uranus. And so we're going to start integrating it. We're going to start seeing and really seeing what needs to change. If you didn't have a radical awakening over the weekend, it's okay. Something was downloaded into you. You received what you needed to. And so just see it as almost like an activation point. And now the activation starts to open up the spaces within you that need to be revealed in order to see what change needs to occur. We also have a full moon in Scorpio this week on the 23rd at 4:49 p.m. Pacific here on the West Coast. And so we have some pretty heavy, dense energies that will be moving again this week. I think I mentioned in a previous podcast that April is a charged month, and it's really charged up until the end, until the last day. And so we have, this week is no different. It's, we have a full moon in Scorpio, like I said, on the 23rd. There's a lot of interaction this week between Mars and Pluto. And that's because Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. And this full moon that we have on the 23rd will be squaring Pluto in Aquarius. And so this full moon happens at 4 degrees Scorpio. We will have, of course, an opposition between the sun and the moon, which is what a full moon is. And then both of these bodies will be squaring Pluto, which is at 2 degrees Aquarius currently. So Mars, which is all about action, and Pluto, which is all about power, are putting pressure on each other. Scorpio is the underworld. It is a sign that really navigates the deep, dark spaces within us, the deep emotions that we might not always have access to, but are in many ways sort of controlling our current reality. When we think about the subconscious, we know that it projects 95% of our reality. So when we exist on our day-to-day, we're really existing so often within our subconscious, and which means that we might not be aware of what's driving us. And this is what we're looking at right now. What is driving us? What fears are present that are driving us? What is sort of holding us hostage in this space of stuckness? These are fixed signs we're talking about. So they need a little encouragement to change. And we had this activation in Taurus over the weekend with Jupiter and Uranus, where we're looking at where we're feeling a bit stuck and where we need to reinvent. Scorpio's a fixed sign as well. It's an opposition to Taurus. And so this is really, really getting us into our roots and asking for us to once again take a look at what needs to be purged and cleared as we make these changes. When I tune into this week intuitively, it feels like we're going down and we're loosening the soil so that we can pull up some of these really deep roots, and the roots that aren't serving, right? Not the roots that anchor us. We want those roots. We want the deep, nourishing roots, the belief in self, the belief in source, the belief in something higher than ourselves, the connection to the earth, that core safety we can find within. That's what we're looking to anchor to. And we're looking to unanchor the other roots that are keeping us in old timelines, in the past, in spaces that feel really safe, but maybe not meant for the next chapter, not expansive enough. And so this full moon is pretty helpful. It's a big purge. Full moons are, of course, when the moon reaches its peak illumination, which means so much can be revealed. It's an opportunity to clear and to let go. It's kind of like a detox period. Because Scorpio is the sign of death and rebirth, it is in its highest, most evolved expression, the phoenix rising from the ashes. What are you letting die right now? What are you mourning, grieving? What are you composting? What are you letting burn away so that you can rise into the next space, the next version of you, more embodied, more whole, less tethered to the power struggles between others? There's so much purging within our relational framework right now. We're still looking at, of course, we will be for the rest of this year and into next year, because we're still in this Aries Libra axis, but where are you letting go of power struggles within your connections? Where are you letting go of power struggles within yourself? The pull between the higher self and the ego, between our wounds and our heart. And because Scorpio travels so deep into the unconscious, it can be really a helpful moon to reveal to us what we're actually feeling, what we're actually desiring, what we actually want. Like I said, Mercury Retrograde will continue until the 25th, but this full moon might have the power to crack through some of that fog that you've been experiencing. And if it doesn't provide clarity, then just let the feelings and the emotions move through you. One of the shadow aspects of Scorpio is that it can be ruled by its emotions. It can only live, beneath the surface or in its Scorpio hole. So it might be a time to learn to work with that. If that's a tendency that you have, if you have a tendency to contract or to stay in the underworld, maybe this is a time to move into that space as the full moon brings you there, and then learn how to regulate and come out of it too. With this full moon squaring Pluto, we're getting plutonic themes come to the surface, which is once again death, transformation, rebirth, power, jealousy, looking at where you're operating from your shadow, the wound, the ego, and where you can step more into the highest expression, be that phoenix rising from the ashes. We've had so much Aries energy too, which can be hot-headed, selfish, reactive. Look at where you've been in that space this month. there's a really fine line between being centered in self and connected to self and selfish. And I've been noticing what's interesting is a lot of people are kind of like writing that line right now. They're kind of working through, what does it feel like to be connected to self, and what does it feel like to let go of the codependency, the self-abandonment, and when are you getting way too far into the other side and being more sort of self-absorbed, selfish. I think that's one of the shadow aspects of this time too, is that we can, through this like reclamation of self, perhaps become too absorbed in self. Don't worry, we'll get rebalanced. But it's really important being, a conscious warrior, that you're also taking responsibility for how you've acted and responded over the last month, and perhaps taking this time to really own even those parts of you, the parts that have felt angry, the parts that have felt betrayed. So much of what we feel in the present is informed by the past. So just noticing where you're pulling on past wounds and experiences that are informing the present. But we've really needed this Aries fire this month to force us back into connection to self in ways, to sort of like have a big course correct. Because it's so easy to be in those codependent patterns, the self-abandonment, the sort of attuning to the other, the orienting outward. 1 month ago, we had our lunar eclipse in Libra. And so we're in a big integration period with the eclipses right now. We're still integrating what was revealed, what we felt, what we were navigating, what the changes we need to make, what we really still need to let go of in order to create new patterns and new ways of being. This full moon is deep. It can feel dark. So just let the emotions come through. This is one of the last big pushes of April. We're in Taurus season. So once we move out of this full moon, we'll start to get to ground a little bit more, to maybe feel more anchored, more present, more in the pleasures of life. You might already be feeling that, which is wonderful, but the start of Taurus season felt different than it, has in the past. Maybe last year it felt a little bit similar because we were still in, we were entering into the Aries and Libra axis, so we had eclipses. But it's this is a time of deep nourishment, but also excavation. And so this is kind of challenging the Venusian energy that wants to be present right now. And it can feel like with all this Mars and Pluto energy that you don't get a chance to just be and just to enjoy and to to deepen into or sink into pleasure as much as you'd like. But notice where you can still do that, even when you're feeling uncomfortable, even when you're being challenged. That's the practice. We're still getting initiated with all this Aries energy, the Scorpio full moon. It's going to keep cracking us open. So just note that we have a lot of changes coming in May as well. We have Jupiter moving into Gemini. There's a lot of expansion happening. This Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is huge. It's really closing a year chapter in a lot of ways, even a 14-year chapter. But when we think about Jupiter entering into Taurus last year, what you've navigated around money, relationships, security, depending on where Taurus lands in your chart, what are you completing now that began last year around this time? And so it's a big time of completion. It's also a time of new beginnings, but you might not see or feel or sense those new beginnings until we get further into May. So because the veil is so thin during a Scorpio full moon, there's a lot that can be revealed. You might have to go inwards, go deeper to hear it and to feel it and to sense it. But I also really encourage you to call upon your guides, your ancestors, your loving ancestors, whatever you feel most connected to, your higher self, source, the earth, elemental beings, whatever you feel most connected to communicating with, calling upon support, asking for help. That's always an option. The card I pulled for all of you today is the Cloud card from the Untamed Elemental deck, and it's all about ritual. Cloud arises when liquid droplets transform into crystals suspended in time. He is a kindred of many worlds. His vapor sings with celestial mobility, networking our moods with higher thought. He clarifies the scope of life's unpredictability with foils of wisps, chains of ripples, and scrolls of futures. He is broadcasting Earth's emotional intelligence to the cosmos and precipitating galactic wisdom upon the planet. He is a two-way mirror with the power of the power to influence worlds. Sorry, guys. Cloud invites you to create magic throughout ritual. You can quickly usher in the change you desire by designing daily or monthly ceremonies that invoke the visions you hold for life. Cloud reminds you that the world of spirit and the physical realm are reflections of one another. By crafting meaningful ritual, you join both together to bring your vision alive. Your intentions gather like water droplets, and you're empowered to shower life-giving rain upon beautiful new realities. When it's balanced, conscious creation. When it's imbalanced, there's perceptions of fixed realities that limit potential. And to bring into balance, perform a simple ritual invoking the full participation of your sovereign essential self. So I thought that was interesting because we're talking about, grounding and rooting and what's fixed and what's stuck maybe in your life. And ritual can be a beautiful way to create some consistency when things are, so much is changing. It's a way to orient. It's a way to find where you are within this storm. And because we're still in the integration, phase of eclipse season, it can feel a little confusing. It can feel, destabilizing and challenging maybe to find your own roots, but ritual can be a beautiful way to bring you back to yourself, to create some consistency in your day and in your life. And so I encourage you to, maybe take inventory of your current rituals. Are they still serving this season, this time? As the seasons change too, of course, we like to change rituals and practices. Maybe they just alter them slightly, or the time of day, or whatever it is. But just remember, you have the power in each moment to change, to choose differently, to shift. You are never stuck. That's only an illusion. And you also get to choose when and where you make the changes in your life. And so just remember that you are the phoenix. You're always the phoenix in each moment. And you have the power to rise above the past, to rise above the ashes, to let go of what you're leaving behind, and to really move forward. I'm sending you all so much love. I'm currently taking clarity calls for June mentorship. And so if you're interested in that, you can schedule a clarity call through my Acuity, my link tree on Instagram. I'll link it below as well in the show notes. So if you have questions about that, feel free to message me to schedule a clarity call. I have 2 spaces available. So I'm so excited to meet new people, to open new containers. This is a really, really deep container. So we go into the core wounds, the roots of the patterns that you're experiencing, what you're moving through, what you're cycling through, any areas where you feel stuck or stagnant. We're essentially helping you move through from where you've been into where you're headed. And so there's a lot of somatic integration, inner child integration. We do internal family systems, parts work, quantum and intuitive healing, shamanic practices. There's a lot that's included in this mentorship. We're meeting bi-weekly together. So we have touch-ins, and then we also have our deep sessions, and we also have touch-ins through Voxer in between. So this is a very intimate space that we work together, and I love it so much. It's my favorite way to work with people. If you're interested, I have 2 spots, like I said, open for June, so we can work through the summer together, through the retrograde periods, all the fun things. And I'm wishing all of you a beautiful week. I hope that you have a blessed full moon in Scorpio, happy Mercury direct, all of the things that we've been calling in. And I will see you next week.